What's up, trainers? Jumpmaster here, bringing you exciting Pokemon Go news and updates, PvP, and tips and tricks on how to enhance your Pokemon Go gameplay and experience. Also, lately, I've been conducting Pokemon card openings, including boxes, packs, tins, promotional cards, and offers. Today, we will be doing yet another Sinister Cup. We know that the Sinister Cup, you can only use Ghost, Psychic, Steel, and Fighting-type Pokemon. We also know that you are unallowed to use Dark-type mythical Pokemon, Skarmories, and Hypnos. For this third tournament, it was the first 6-rounder in North Carolina, and I decided to bring Claydol, Mawile, Poliwrath, Steelix, Drifblim, and Alolan Marowak. I figured this would give me a diverse array against any opponent. Our first opponent is Otterly072. He brings Steelix, Poliwrath, Metagross, Drifblim, Alolan Raichu, and Alolan Marowak. So, going into this first match, I lead off with Alolan Marowak, and he brings Drifblim. This is a positive matchup for him and not myself, but my goal here is not really to keep my Alolan Marowak in the game, so I do save up to a Shadow Ball, and I'm going to try to shield bait his Drifblim right here. I do get the shield bait, and I tried to switch, but it would not allow me to switch, so my Alolan Marowak took yet another Ominous Wind, and I will just throw this Bone Club to try to get yet his other shield, but I did not. He was going to allow his Drifblim to go. I should have just threw that Shadow Ball out there. Instead, my Marowak goes down, in comes my Poliwrath. We know that this is going to be an Ominous Wind, so we're not going to shield it. So I do build up to an Ice Punch, but he has yet another Ominous Wind coming in, so I'm just going to tank that with my Poliwrath. And then I'm going to throw this Ice Punch after I've built up a little bit of energy to a Dynamic Punch. Now we're out of 1-1 shield scenario, and my Poliwrath is down low on health. Out comes his Alolan Raichu. As you can see, I tried to switch, and yet again, it would not allow me. So I finally get my Claydol in. We know that we are going to be resisting this Thunder Punch, but we block it anyway to try and conserve our energy. He gets to another Thunder Punch, and I'm just going to try to build up my energy against this Alolan Raichu, and then I let this Earth Power off, trying to KO it. He does let that go through, and down goes his Alolan Raichu. Out comes his Metagross, which I was not expecting, so I immediately throw an Earth Power to either get his shield, which I do, and trying to drop his defense. I did not get the defense drop, and now the Metagross will throw a Meteor Mash at my Claydol, pretty much KOing it. Out comes my Poliwrath. I do get to the Dynamic Punch, but this Dynamic Punch is not enough to KO that Metagross, and the Metagross faints down my Poliwrath, so GG's game 1. Going into game 2, I start off with Steelix, switching up my strategy, trying to adapt. He comes in with Alolan Raichu. Right there I had a little bit of lag and could not get my charge moves going at the beginning. So I do build up to my Earthquake, and I think I just go straight for the Earthquake here. His Poliwrath, we notice, has a power-up punch, so we do throw this Earthquake at his Poliwrath in hopes to at least knock some energy off or get a shield. We did get a shield. I tried to switch. I bring in my Poliwrath. Now it is a mirror match, and we know he has power-up punch. I don't know why I shielded right here. That was an error on my part. So I do build up to a Dynamic Punch, and I will throw this at his Poliwrath, either in hopes to feint it or get a second shield. It does go through, and now I'm just going to feint down his Poliwrath with quick attacks. I used my final shield right here to conserve my Poliwrath, just to get energy gain, to try and keep building energy on my behalf. So he does throw yet another power-up punch. Now my Poliwrath is extremely low. He has a 1 shield advantage, and I'm out of shield. So I switch to this Alolan Marowak, and I throw a Bone Club, knowing that this will do super effective damage. I just want to get as much damage done to his AWOC as I can. He does throw that first shield up, and now I build my energy up to a Shadow Ball. He's completely out of shields, and this should KO that Alolan Marowak. I don't know why he continuously kept saving up energy there. That was probably a mistake on his part. Out comes this Alolan Raichu, and he's going to continuously spam Thunder Punches at my AWOC, which I can't really do anything about. So I do build up to a Bone Club, and I will launch this Bone Club at that Alolan Raichu in order to do as much damage as I possibly can. Then I will switch into my Steelix, which resists Alolan Raichu's attacks, and I will just try to feint it down with my Steelix, and that is GG's for Game 2. Going into Game 3 of Match 1, I once again switch my strategy back to something else, and I start off with my Alolan Marowak. I do build up to a Shadow Ball, and I try to shield bait his Drifblim instead of just going for a Hail Mary. And he does use his shield, so I did try to switch right there also, and once again it did not allow it, so I used the shield in my favor to build up to a Shadow Ball and throw the Shadow Ball at his Drifblim, hoping he will let it go, and he does. So down goes his Drifblim, and I will try to switch into a counter for this Steelix, but instead I just throw a Bone Club to try to get some damage done to the Steelix, knowing that this is a positive matchup for Alolan Marowak. His Steelix is building up energy. I did just get his last shield, so I will throw another Bone Club at his Steelix and continue to try to use as many quick attacks as I can on his Steelix. Here I use my shield, knowing that I can get yet to another Bone Club, and he is out of shield, so this should feint his Steelix. And it does, and out comes his third Pokemon, which we see as a Poliwrath. So we know this is a negative matchup for us. We are almost dead, so we're just trying to chip away as much health as we can. We throw a Bone Club and immediately switch into Poliwrath. He's going to throw a Power-Up Punch at our Poliwrath. I'm starting to think here that he doesn't have any other moves except for Power-Up Punch, because it is the only move that he has used against us once his Poliwrath was out. So I do just build up to a Dynamic Punch, and I will throw this Dynamic Punch. It shouldn't feint his Poliwrath. It doesn't, and then I feint him down with Quick Attack, so GG's. My second opponent is C. Panovs, and he's using Medicham, Steelix, Poliwrath, Mawile, Drifblim, and Gardevoir. Going into this matchup, I was quite unsure about what I should do with the strategy, so I do start with Steelix, and he catches me on the lead. So I will sit here and try to build up just a little bit of energy, and as you see, I am trying to switch. It would not let me switch. I got stuck, so instead of getting to my Claydol, instead I got this Crunch thrown at him, which did get one of his shields, and he will throw a Dynamic Punch at my Claydol. It is not very effective, but out comes his Mawile, which is just going to shred straight through my Claydol. And we know that this is going to be a Power-Up Punch from his Mawile, and we're going to die anyway. So we're just going to sack our Claydol after we use our Earth Power. He does not shield, so his Mawile goes down, and out comes his Poliwrath once again. He knows that that Poliwrath counter is out of the way, and he has an advantage. He is using a Legacy Poliwrath with Mud Shot. So I throw my Alolan Marowak out, and I will shield this first attack. Or actually, no, I didn't. I should have. And we learned that he does have Hydro Pump here. So we know he couldn't be at another Hydro Pump, but we did block, knowing that he probably was carrying Dynamic Punch. So we build up to a Crunch after a little bit of energy gain, and we're going to throw this Crunch, and he lets it go through. I should have built up to an Earthquake right there. Once again, another mistake on my part. He still got a full health Pokemon in the back, so I build up a little bit of energy, and I will throw this Crunch in hopes to feint his Poliwrath, and he does block. But then I feint him down with my Steelix with a little bit of energy gain. I am out of shields, and we know that this Medicham is carrying Power-Up Punch, which is going to feint me down with counters. I did try to get to the Earthquake, but I could not get to it. So GG's for Game 1. Going into Game 2, I lead with a different strategy. I come in with Alolan Marowak, and he leads with Mawile. Now, this matchup depends on what the Mawile is using. As you can see, that Mawile, I think it's using a Ice Fang and not a Bite attack. He does get my Alolan Marowak pretty low, in which I will throw a Bone Club, get his first shield, and then launch another Bone Club in hopes of feinting that Mawile. He does not let it go down, and he continues to Ice Fang my Alolan Marowak. Right here, I guess the game glitched due to some lag, but I did select Poliwrath. I came in and feinted down his Alolan Marowak. He throws out that Gardevoir, so I switched to Steelix, and in comes his Poliwrath. I know that he's completely out of shields, but I will let this crunch go. I should have used Earthquake and then built up to another Earthquake is what I should have done. I don't know why I played Crunch, but I will build up energy yet and try to get to another Crunch, which I do, and let this other Crunch go and try to build up as much damage as I can towards that Poliwrath. All I'm doing here is I'm trying to just get my switch back in place so I can bring my second Pokemon back into play. But he's fainted, he's got my Steelix so far down on health that even if I faint him down right here, it wouldn't have mattered. He does use the Dynamic Punch and it faints out my Steelix. In comes my Poliwrath. Out goes his Gardevoir. Ice Punch is the proper play against the Gardevoir, so I throw an Ice Punch. As you can see, the damage hits, but I can not get to a second Ice Punch, so that is GG's Game 2. Going into Game 3, I completely switch my strategy up, and I start with Claydol. Here I'm just trying to faint down his Poliwrath with no shields. I don't care what he uses. I know that this is probably going to be a Hydro Pump since he's running a Legacy, which it is, so I shield it to block it, and I'm just going to sit here and try to Confusion down his Poliwrath. We know that the second move he's throwing is more than likely a Dynamic Punch because we're counting correctly, and we faint down that Poliwrath. In comes his Mawile. So as you see, I am trying to switch my Claydol. I get stuck yet again, so I switch into my Alola Marowak, and he switches into his Medicham. I will sit here and try to just throw Shadow Ball straight at him, which he does block. Now we know that this is going to be a power-up punch, so we let this just come through, and now we're going to build right back up to another Shadow Ball and launch that back off at that Medicham in hopes that it goes through. We hope that he lost count, which he blocks once again. We think this is a power-up punch, but instead it is a Psychic, so that Psychic is boosted after that power-up punch. Here, my heart started racing. I did not want to lose all 3 matches. So I throw my Claydol out, and I use my Psychic that I already have built up just to KO his Medicham. Out comes his Mawile, and as you see, I'm trying to hit that Earth Power, but it would not allow me. So I have to play my Steelix, my third Pokemon, so I throw it out there. We know that he's going to power up with his power-up punch. He is using Ice Fang, but since he is out of shields, we're just building up to an Earthquake. We're going to block this attack that comes in, which is the power-up punch, and then we're going to launch off this Earthquake to KO that Mawile, and that will be GG's for Game 3, so now I am 1-1 in the tournament. Going up against Survivor CT, he's using Steelix, Medicham, Drifblim, Toxicroak, Alolan Raichu, and Alolan Marowak. So, during this game, I use different strategies once again. I start off with my Claydol, and he starts with his Drifblim. So I'm just going to build up a little bit of energy, and as you can see, I'm trying to switch into, I think, my Alola Marowak there, but it wouldn't allow me. So he does go for a Hail Mary Shadow Ball. I build up just enough energy, stow it away, and then I finally do get the switch to my Alola Marowak. This will be a Ominous Wind, or another Shadow Ball. So I did make a good call there, and I come out, and I'm trying to shield bait him, hoping he's not counting correctly. And I do get that shield, so I will sit here and just try to feint him down with fast attacks. Incoming yet another Shadow Ball. We do let that go through and just sack our Alola Marowak. And then we will come in with, I think, Steelix. Yep, come in with Steelix, and we're just trying to feint him down and build up some energy. So he places Medicham. I do get up to the Earthquake, and I'm going to try to one-hit his Medicham after I get a shield. I get a shield, and out comes my Claydol. I didn't even get the excellent there. That's so horrible. We're pretty sure this right here is going to be a power-up punch. Nope, it is a dynamic punch. So we are just building back up to another Psychic, I think. Yep. And man, I'm so horrible at doing that. But we do feint down his Medicham, and then out comes his Alolan Raichu, which we know we are resisted to. So we're pretty positive that we are going to get to our Earth Power. He does Wild Charge us. It almost kills us. We get to the Earth Power, and this should almost feint that Alolan Raichu. Nope, it completely feints the Alolan Raichu, and that's GG's for Game 1. Going into Game 2, I start off with Steelix, yet another strategy. So, as you notice, I do not like to use the exact same strategy during my gameplay anymore due to people being able to pick up on it and easily defeat me. So he does Shadow Ball my Steelix. I let that go through, and I will try to get his first shield with this Earthquake, in which he does block. So I'm just going to try to do another crunch, which I do build up to. I will either get his second shield or he will block here. He does let that go through. His Alola Marowak is almost dead, so I do play my Poliwrath, I think, just to feint it down. I didn't know if this was a Shadow Ball, so I did block it. It was a Shadow Ball, so that was a good call on my part, and I feint down his Alola Marowak. Out comes his Alola Raichu, so I switch into my Claydol immediately, and out comes a Steelix. Now we're both at a 1-1 shield, so I do build up to my Earth Power, which he will block. And I'm pretty sure he is building up to a double crunch. So I shielded this first crunch that came in, and I'm going to try to build back up to yet another Earth Power, which I do get to. And this should almost KO that Steelix. So as you see, it just does so much damage to him. Incoming crunch from the Steelix, which will do quite a bit of damage, but it will not KO. And then we are just going to switch right back out into our Poliwrath. In comes his Alola Raichu, and we will launch an Ice Punch at that Alola Raichu. And we know that this right here is going to be either a Wild Charge or a Thunder Punch. It is a Wild Charge, and it does KO our Poliwrath. Back comes our Claydol. Our Earth Power's charged up. We know that this is going to be another Wild Charge. Alola Raichu just charges up to Wild Charge so fast, trainers. But we do get to that Earth Power, and we're going to launch that Earth Power to KO that Alola Raichu. So GG's Game 2. Going into Game 3, we have Alola Marowak as a start versus his Drifblim. So this is a bad matchup for us. I immediately switch in my Steelix, and I'm going to build up to Crunch. I think this right here is just an Ominous Wind, but it was a Shadow Ball, and we did let that go through. So we're kind of in the same predicament as a previous match. So I do crunch that Drifblim and get his first shield. I am trying to build up to another crunch, which I do get to, and I will crunch that Drifblim. Either it will do massive damage like that, or I would have got his second shield. Now we know that this right here is probably yet another Shadow Ball, which it is. So we let our Steelix go down, and we bring our Alola Marowak right back in to feint down that Drifblim with them fast attacks. Out comes his Alola Marowak, so we just build up to the Shadow Ball. I think we're at the shield advantage right here as well. So he does block that Shadow Ball, and we do have 2 shields, and he is out of shields. So we will shield this very first attack. It is a Shadow Ball. He was going for the KO. We will get to that second Shadow Ball before him, build up a little bit of energy before we launch it, and we're going to launch this Shadow Ball to KO that Alola Marowak. Out comes his Alola Raichu. So we know we have Poliwrath in the back, and that is a bad scenario for us. So we are going to try to keep this Alola Marowak alive. We throw this first Bone Club that we get to, and we are conserving that last shield for... Oh, I'm sorry, I had Claydol in the back. We are conserving that last shield for this Claydol right here, so we can try to just feint that down with fast attacks. So we will just Confusion down that Alola Raichu, and that is GG's. Going into our next opponent, we have Trade Dragon. He brought Frostlass, Steelix, Bastiodon, Haunter, Medicham, and Alola Marowak. Very interesting team. I figured he would lead with this Haunter, so I did start off with my Steelix. He did lead with Haunter. I know that I do have an advantage here with my Steelix, so I'm not going to block this. It is a Shadow Punch. I do charge up to a Crunch, and I'm going to throw this Crunch at his Haunter, hoping to get the shield, and I do. So I'm going to build back up to another Crunch and hopes to get a second shield or feint it down. So I do use a shield on my Steelix right now. I am trying to get rid of that Haunter. It is a big threat to the team that I brought into this matchup right here. I do get a second shield, and now I'm just trying to feint it down with my Steelix, but he does get to a Shadow Punch, which will KO my Steelix. So I do throw out my Alola Marowak, and I will try to just feint it down with those Fire Spins. Now I have a Bone Club built up, and I launch this very first Shadow Ball. We are at a 1-1 shield scenario. He probably, he does let that go through. I'm not sure if this is a Bone Club or a Shadow Ball, so I do block it. It was a Bone Club. He got my last shield, so now we're both at 0 shields, but I'm at an energy advantage. Out comes his Medicham, and we know that the Shadow Ball is going to KO that Medicham, so we build up and throw it. We get a couple fast hits in, and that's GG's for the first match. Going into our next match, I switch strategies yet again and start off with my Claydol. He brings in his Medicham. I'm just building up a little bit of energy. We know that this Medicham is probably throwing Power Up Punch right here, which it is. So I'm going to continue building up some energy. He switches out into his Haunter. I do not know why he switched into his Haunter right there, but I will use my first shield on the Shadow Punch to keep my Claydol alive, and then Confusion that Haunter down. Now my Claydol has a lot of energy built up. Out comes his Alola Marowak, so I do switch into my Steelix. We know that this is going to be a Bone Club, so we do not block it. And we're going to continuously try to build up our energy and launch this very first crunch at the Alola Marowak in hopes to get a shield. And we do, and we know this here is going to be yet another Bone Club, which will do a lot of damage to our Steelix, but it's fine, we will tank that. And we're going to build up to another crunch and try to pull his second shield. I think we do get it right here. We do. And his Alola Marowak faints us down with Fire Spins. So in comes my Alola Marowak, and I do have a shield left. I'm pretty sure this is a Shadow Ball, so I do block it. And now it's a race to the Shadow Ball. We knew this right here was probably just a Bone Club. He couldn't have got to that Shadow Ball faster than us. So we are just building up to that Shadow Ball, and we get to it. And now we're going to launch that Shadow Ball at his Alola Marowak to KO it. His last Pokemon is Medicham, and we are out of shields. He does use Power Up Punch, so we are going to try to build up to the Shadow Ball as fast as we can. We do get to it, and we're going to throw that Shadow Ball, and that will KO that Medicham. And that is GG's for round 1. Going into round 2, we switch up yet again, and I bring Drifblim as the first Pokemon choice. He starts off with his Medicham, which we gave the lead. So he switches into Alola Marowak here, and I was pretty much already at the Ominous Wind, so I decided to just throw the first Ominous Wind and then switch into my Claydol since I got his first shield, and I'm confusioning this Alola Marowak till I get to this Earth Power. I do get a second shield, and we know that this is probably going to be a Shadow Ball because we were counting, and incoming Shadow Ball. So this right here is going to be a Bone Club. I do shield it, yes, and it was not a Bone Club. He had 2 Shadow Balls saved up, which is insane. So we're both out of shields, but my Claydol has full energy gain, and I have that Drifblim in the back that can still come in and do plenty of damage to this Medicham. I do use Psychic on Medicham, and then it gets the defense drop, and I immediately switch into my Drifblim to start building up my energy. His Medicham had a Psychic ready. It almost KO'd my Drifblim, but I was already at the Ominous One, which will KO that Medicham. Out comes his Haunter, and it just straight deletes my Drifblim. So I think I throw out my Claydol here, and I'm trying to build up to an Earth Power, but he will KO that Claydol. Now all of his energy is gone, energy reset. We know this is going to be a Shadow Punch. All we have to do is get up to a crunch, and that will give us the game. So that's what we're going to do. So as you see, we do get up to the crunch, and this will KO that Haunter. And that is GG's. Going into our 5th match, we play Techman 26. He's brought Poliwrath, Dusclops, Alola Marowak, Mawile, Claydol, and Steelix. So this was a mirror match team for me. So going into match 1, we both lead with Poliwrath as a mirror match, which is quite interesting. We had the same thoughts for the team process here. He does throw a Dynamic Punch immediately, but I just stow off my Dynamic Punch and my energy on my Poliwrath. I build up to the Shadow Ball, and I am going to throw it at this Alola Marowak, or his Mawile that he's just switched into, and that bite damage is just doing so much to my Alola Marowak, so I will start throwing Bone Clubs at him, in which he does let go through, Now I am trying to just fire spin to another Bone Club. I know my Alola Marowak will die here, so I just let this power-up punch go through. I think I elect to throw my Poliwrath back in to build up just a little bit more energy. Nope, I play my Steelix, and I start building my Steelix's energy up, although that Maw will do a whole lot of damage, but we do have the shield advantage, so it was a good idea just to sack my Alola Marowak. In comes his Poliwrath. He will get this first shield. I'm expecting an Ice Punch, which it was, and he did get my shield, but I switched into my Poliwrath and immediately threw that Dynamic Punch since we had his energy reset. We will build right back up to a Dynamic Punch. We do want to KO this Poliwrath. It is a threat right now, so we do block this attack. He does get our second shield, but we did build up to the Dynamic Punch, which will KO that Poliwrath. Out comes his last Pokemon, which is a Steelix, and we are able to get to a Dynamic Punch, which is going to do plenty of damage to that Steelix. And then we're just going to try to fast attack it all the way down, and it is a simultaneous KO, but that is GG's. I had the Steelix in the back still. Going into our match 2, I chose to lead with Mawile, and he comes in with Dusclops. And as you can see, this is a good matchup for Mawile, so we are going to use the shield against this Fire Punch, and we're just going to continuously build up to that power-up punch. Here I threw power-up punch. I think he thought that this was a play rough, so he did not shield it. He did call my bluff, but I changed into my Poliwrath just in time to catch this Dynamic Punch. And now I am going to build up my energy all the way until I get to a Dynamic Punch and throw that Dynamic Punch at his Poliwrath. I think he shields right here. He does. So now we're both at a one shield. Building up energy. I think that this is an Ice Punch, which it is, so I do call his bluff. So I do build up to the Dynamic Punch, and I will throw that to try to KO his Poliwrath. He does not let it go through. Although our Poliwrath is about to die, we're just going to conserve that very last shield and let him faint. I think I go back in with my Alola Marowak to start building up some energy. In comes his Dusclops. We know that this is going to be a Shadow Punch, so we do throw our shield. With the energy reset, we do immediately switch into our Mawile and go ahead and faint down that Dusclops. We know that he does have that Poliwrath still, with at least one energy turn. So out comes that Poliwrath, and since it's already low on health, we decided to just go ahead and throw that power-up punch and try to use Bite to feint it out, but that did not work in our favor. He will Ice Punch us. It almost KOs, but our Bite does take care of him. We do get to one more power-up punch against his Steelix, so we will let that off and try to do as much damage as we possibly can. Our Alola Marowak's already got this energy built up in the back, so we will throw this Bone Club, or my bad, the Shadow Ball, and then try to build up to a Bone Club or just faint him down with our Fire Spins. I do not know why he used Crunch right here. He should have used the Earthquake, but that is GG's for the second game. And going into the third game, I chose to lead with Steelix. He chooses to come out with Mawile. I know this matchup pretty well in my head with my team synergy and strategy, so I'm going to let this first power-up punch come through against my Steelix, and his Mawile is starting to build up a whole lot of energy, so I'm just stowing a whole bunch of energy away here, and I'm going to throw Crunch after Crunch back to back. I think I do get his first shield, so I will immediately, like I said, throw Crunch back to back to try to get that second shield, and I do. So I am going to let this Mawile go ahead and use his power-up punch against my Steelix, and I will shield that and build up to yet another Crunch, knowing that it will faint me if I wait 2 more turns. It doesn't do a whole lot of damage, and that Mawile faints down my Steelix. In comes my Poliwrath, so he switches out to his Claydol. So I immediately switch out to my Claydol, knowing that Claydol is the biggest threat towards Poliwrath. Claydol and Gardevoir. He gets to an Earth Power and launches Earth Power at me, so I do build up my energy after shielding that, and man, I barely get to grade on these things, so I do throw Psychic and get the defense drop off of it, hoping to just Confusion this Claydol all the way down. This right here will be an Earth Power, but it should not be enough to KO, and then we're just going to Confusion down this Claydol as much as we possibly can. We know he's going to play that Mawile, but instead he throws out this Dusclops, which is it definitely threw me off, and I had already launched Psychic, so I immediately switch into my Poliwrath and throw this Ice Punch that I already have stowed, and I'm going to build up to this Ice Punch in hopes of dropping this Dusclops, and I still have this Mawile in the back to worry about. This Dusclops has a whole bunch of energy gain, so he will throw the Shadow Punch, and I will try to just faint him down with fast attacks in hopes that I can get up to this Dynamic Punch. But his Mawile comes out, already had a Power-Up Punch ready to go. Bad news for me, that did faint my Poliwrath. Out came my Claydol, and as you saw, just one bite attack took it down, and that is GG's. Going into our 6th match is against Matt Fall, the Season 1 Rank 7 globally. We are going to be playing against Banette, Poliwrath, Primeape, Bastiodon, Driftblim, and Dusclops. So going into match 1, we both come in with a mirror match Poliwrath. So here I'm just going to build up as much energy as I can. I'm pretty sure he's throwing a Dynamic Punch right here, so I do block it, and it is a Dynamic Punch, but I did counter that and throw a Dynamic Punch back. It was a CMP tie there. He does let that go through. Since energy reset, he immediately switched out to this Dusclops. The game would not let me switch, but it kind of worked out in my favor in the end. So I do switch after throwing my Ice Punch and get the energy reset to my Alola Marowak. That Dusclops is locked into place. He will Shadow Punch that Alola Marowak, and I'm going to try to just build up to a Shadow Ball, I think, and KO that Dusclops if I'm not mistaken. Yep, that's what I did, in hopes to either feint that Dusclops with this or get that last shield. I do get his last shield, and he will build up energy right here towards my Alola Marowak, hoping he could feint it, but it did not work out, so I do get the Bone Club off, and that just about feints his Dusclops. I think I elect to throw in my Poliwrath, and one quick attack, one bubble did feint that Dusclops. Now we're at a 1-1 shields. He does play this Banette. I already have an Ice Punch ready to go, and I do know that he has his Poliwrath in the back. So once he switches to his Poliwrath, I'm trying so hard to switch right here, but it would not let me. But eventually I do get the Claydol out. We know this is probably going to hurt. It is an Ice Punch. We let that come through, and now we're just going to build up some energy and try to throw an Earth Power, I think, against this. Nope, I think it's a Psychic. He gets me with the baited return, and here comes yet another return. I think it gets to return so fast. My Poliwrath already had an Ice Punch ready to go, but it feinted the Banette. GG's, and going into Game 2, I choose to lead with my Mawile. He brings in Driftblim. It did not work out, so he switched into Poliwrath, so I switched into my Alola Marowak. I'm pretty sure this is a Ice Punch, so I do not block, and I'm going to sit here and build up to a Shadow Ball. I know that there's no way this is a Hydro Pump, so I just let that come through. It's another Ice Punch. I do throw this Bone Club in hopes to get his first shield, and I do. And he's going to continue to try to Ice Punch me. So I do throw the Shadow Ball, hoping I can feint that Poliwrath. And he does let that go through, conserving his last shield. Out comes his Dusclops, and I'm going to try to get to this Bone Club, but it feints my Mawile. So I will throw it feints my Alola Marowak, so I do play my Mawile, and I will shield up this first Fire Punch. And now I'm going to just try to get to a Power-Up Punch to start building up that bite damage against his Dusclops. So he does use his, I do swap out into Poliwrath, and I throw Ice Punch towards the Dusclops. I think he uses his last shield here, he does, and then he immediately switches into Driftblim, so I will throw my Ice Punch. We know that his Dusclops has tons of energy stowed. I should have saved my shield for my Mawile, but instead I think I used it right here, thinking this was a Shadow Ball, but it was just an Ominous Wind. I do get to an Ice Punch, so I'm going to go ahead and feint that Driftblim. Down goes the Driftblim, out comes this Dusclops with all of his energy already stowed, and I think he throws back-to-back Shadow Punches. I immediately switch into my Mawile. This right here will be a Shadow Punch. Oh, a Fire Punch, I'm sorry. And I'm trying to feint down that Dusclops with my Mawile. The Dusclops will hit me with a Shadow Punch and feint me. Out comes my Poliwrath, and one bubble will faint that Dusclops. Going into our third game, I start with Claydol, and he comes out with Poliwrath. I know this is a very good matchup for me right here, so I start beating down his Poliwrath, but he switches to his Dusclops, so I switch out to my Alola Marowak. We know this is probably going to be a Shadow Punch, which it is, so we just let our Awok tank that. And incoming another Shadow Punch. Really, I'm just sacking my Alola Marowak right here. I do build up to a Shadow Ball. I'm either going to get his shield after throwing this Bone Club for a bait, which I do, and I will build back up a little bit and immediately throw another Bone Club. I think he called this one, and he lets it go through. He does, and I build up just a little bit more energy. Not a good scenario for me, so I do throw out my Poliwrath. We know this will be a Shadow Punch incoming against Poliwrath, so we do not shield it. And we're just trying to build up some energy, but he has 2 Shadow Punches already stowed. And then he immediately switches into his Poliwrath, and I figured this would be a dynamic punch, so I did block it and use my shield. And then I immediately switched out to my Claydol, and we're not going to shield anything, we're just going to try to faint down this Poliwrath with our Claydol. We're not sure what's going to come out next, so I think I just picked Psychic here. I'm not 100% sure. Nope, I picked Earth Power. Out comes his Dusclops. He did decide to sack his Dusclops. And then out comes his Banette, which just one-hits my Claydol. Even though this Ice Punch was stowed up, it does do a lot of damage. He did block that with his Banette. We know this will be returned, but at this point in the game, we know that there's no way of coming back and winning, so we did not use our shield. We will get to this Ice Punch and launch it off, doing a lot of damage to the Banette, but he will get to yet another return, so that is GG's to Matfall. I'd like to thank everybody in the Top Notch Triangle that came out to the first ever 6-round tournament that was hosted at NCSU with the NCSU Pogo server and Discord. Congratulations to Datboimuk for taking first place with the 6-0 victory sweep. A major thanks to everybody out there that watches my channel and supports me in my hobby, which is Pokemon. If you like my channel and would like more fun and Poke educational content, press that subscribe button to continue receiving cool raid challenges and feats, PvP battles, Poke puns, and card openings. Thank you everybody. Jumpmaster out.